What does automation at NexBotix look like? How does it work? These are the questions I want to answer in this video. I'm Nick, Head of Software Development at NexBotix, and I want to take you on a tour of our automation lifecycle, from the bots all the way to our platform. Let's take a look. So let's start at the very beginning and look at all the different questions that we're looking to answer in this video. So first we're going to start with talking about our bots. There's a lot of misconceptions about bots, thinking that they're overly intelligent and that they're going to take over the world. But in our case, the bots are a lot simpler than they seem, and I'm going to take you through exactly what they are. First of all, by looking at what a bot actually is, where it lives in your automation, and then what it actually does. From that point, we're going to then look at document extraction. A lot of what we do involves reading documents like invoices or identity papers or even just general documents. We're going to show you how we extract the data from those documents and how we also use AI to help in that. After document extraction, we'll look at the NexBotix Platform. We'll talk about what the NexBotix Platform is and what it's used for, why you need to know how to use it, and how to use it. We're going to talk about how the platform connects to the bot and vice versa, the relationship between the bots that you're running and the platform that you're logging into. We're also going to talk about the concept of business exceptions and business rules. Moving on from the platform, we'll talk about the concept of processes and phases, namely what a process is, and then what a phase is and how it sits within a process. And then we'll tie up the video with an overall demonstration, bringing everything together, where we'll run the bot, process some documents, in this case invoices, do some OCR extraction, run them through into the platform where you can approve them and see the results of that. So let's talk about the bots. So a bot, put simply, is the combination of a series of predefined commands put together by a developer. So if you're engaging with NexBotix, it might be that our developers have built the bot for you, so they're arranging the various commands that fulfill your business process. Or in some cases, it may be that you are using our technology to arrange those commands. In most cases, we're doing it, but it could be either way. We use a desktop application called the NexBotix Studio. Studio is our development environment. It's where we take the commands we want to use to fulfill the business process and we arrange them in the correct order. When the commands within the Studio are combined in a logical order, a bot is born. A bot is a script of actions which can be scheduled to run whenever needed. So this script of actions would represent a business process. So for example, you may have a set of commands which take an email and then strip the attachments from it and put those attachments in a folder. That is a business process that would have been fulfilled by a human, which is now fulfilled automatically through software or through a bot. Bots have various different features and abilities, namely the ability to emulate human actions such as clicking and typing, whilst also being able to carry out back-end actions such as calling APIs, grabbing emails and their attachments, and performing complex calculations. A bot is simply a program that sits on a server and is scheduled to run at predefined times or triggered manually. Whether the bot is scheduled or run manually depends on whether it's an attended or unattended process, but we'll talk about that a bit more later. The server on which the bot sits is sometimes also referred to as the bot. So for a lot of our projects, we will usually install the bot on a Windows server on your environment, and that is, for all intents and purposes, the bot. Whenever it runs on that machine, we also refer to that machine as the bot. Outside of document extraction, the bot is not actually intelligent. It does exactly what it's told to do with the information available to it. It's simply a script put together by a human. So now we've introduced you to the concept of the bot, let's talk about document extraction. So I did say that bots are not technically intelligent, but there is one aspect to them that is very intelligent, and that's where document extraction is involved. To read documents automatically, our bots use OCR, or optical character recognition, with machine learning to read documents. Machine learning models are used to auto-extract content from invoices, identity documents, receipts, or generic document layouts. Because the models have been pre-trained using machine learning and AI over thousands of different document examples, we're able to seamlessly recognize the layout of a document and extract its content. Our OCR is cloud-based, so the bot calls into the AI that sits in the cloud, the AI performs the extraction, and then returns the results to the bot in a structured format that it can understand. The bot can then parse that response and use it as part of your business logic. So for example, the results might say, here's an invoice ID, and this is the value. Here's a vehicle identification number, and here's the value. The OCR can also detect handwriting and tables along with the cells within them. Most file types are supported, including PDF, TIFF, PNG, JPEG, and bitmap. We simply take the file, ingest it, send it to the OCR, and get the result. This is our main AI-focused area for automation, and it's working incredibly well. In most cases, we don't even need to train manually the documents, so we don't have to tell the AI where things are on the page. We just send it an invoice, it knows it's an invoice, and it then uses the AI to find invoice style fields. So it will look specifically for invoice IDs, line items, and things like that, whilst also returning any other fields that it finds. So let's sum up what we've talked about so far. We've talked about the bots, what they are, how they're built, and where they live. And we've talked about document extraction and how we use AI in the cloud to seamlessly extract content from documents in various formats. So let's talk a little bit about the processes themselves and how we automate them. There's a bit of terminology we need to go over here, so let's take a look. The first piece of terminology I want to talk about is a business rule, which is an agreed way something should be done. These are the things that we're configuring using the commands in the bot. So we'll agree with you what a business rule is. For example, all invoices must begin with T. If that business rule is broken, we have another piece of terminology in the form of a business exception. Business exception is a situation where a business rule has been broken and a human needs to intervene. So in NexBotix, one of the things we specialize in is human interaction with bots. We understand that when we're automating a process, there could be numerous scenarios where a human has better knowledge of the process and is able to tell the bot how to proceed when a business rule has been broken and a business exception has been created. For capturing those business exceptions, we have an application called the NexBotix Platform that all users on a NexBotix project have access to, and they're able to catch those exceptions that are sent in from the bot, along with some other handy analytical data. At NexBotix, we believe that human intervention is essential to the effective execution of automation. We built the NexBotix Platform as a web application that our users can access to both see the bot activity and also manage any issues that were submitted by the bot during a process which may require human intervention. Human intervention usually involves dealing with business exceptions, where you tell the bot how to proceed when a particular business rule has been broken. So when our developers, or when you as a developer are working on an automation, you will try to compensate for or factor in as many business rules as possible. But it's inevitable that eventually a particular business rule will be broken. That's where the platform comes in. With the platform, you're able to tell the bot to send a platform task which a human can pick up and tell the bot how to proceed. After being onboarded onto a NexBotix project, users are provided a platform URL that they can navigate to and the credentials to log in. We have an area of the platform called the Action Manager, which is an inbox for issues raised by the bot, and these issues can be assigned to individual users or user groups. Any data that was extracted from a document can be amended within the platform and decisions can be made. These documents can be reviewed before sending them back to the bot on a particular phase for the bot to process further. You may have noticed that I use some more new terminology in the form of processes and phases. So let's look at processes and phases and how they work before we take an actual deep dive into the bot working with the platform. At NexBotix, we structure our automations using two key concepts: processes and phases. A process is an end-to-end set of activities that form a business function. So a really good example of this would be invoice processing, or it could be HR onboarding, the process of bringing a new employee into a business. A phase is a unit of work that forms a part of the overall process. For example, document extraction. So within a process, you may have many phases. For example, an invoice processing process may have 4 phases. So here we have invoice processing as an overall process, and within that we have 4 phases, starting with document pickup and extraction, data checking, where we may be validating the data that was extracted from a document, approval, where somebody will actually approve the document to be posted, and then a final phase which actually posts the data into finance software such as Sage, Oracle NetSuite, or QuickBooks. At any point during a phase, the bot can decide it needs human intervention. So as I said, if a business rule is broken, it will send an issue into the platform and then move on to the next task. If after that point a human deals with the issue in the platform, they can send the item back to a specific phase in the process as needed. That means then that when that phase that they've sent the item back to kicks in again, whether it's scheduled or manually triggered, that item will be processed according to the decisions or the alterations that the human made. Phases will be triggered either manually or scheduled. In an attended automation, phases are started manually. These are the least common forms of automation. For attended automation, somebody would manually start the bot on a particular phase and it would do its work for that phase at that point. The most common form of automation is an unattended automation. Phases in this case would be scheduled to run automatically at defined intervals. So if you sent something from the platform to the approval phase, the bot would wake up at a certain time based on the schedule and it would pick that item up for the approval phase. So that was a lot of theory. Let's look at the real world application. Here we have the platform and we have the action manager, which is the inbox for any issues that the bot may have raised. The bot will raise an issue if it's a business exception because a business rule has been broken, or it could raise an issue that needs to be approved by somebody. It's important to note that a business exception doesn't mean the bot has failed. It simply means that a business rule has been broken and a human needs to tell the bot what to do next. Within the Action Manager, we have three distinct areas: My Tasks, Team Tasks, and Unassigned. For any tasks that you've been assigned by the bot, they will appear in the My Tasks section. This is your queue. Any tasks which have been assigned to general team or other users, these will be in Team Tasks. Finally, for any items which have been raised by the bot and assigned to a particular group of users, these will appear in the Unassigned tab. This allows anybody in a team to pick up specific items that are waiting to be addressed, and they'll be auto-assigned to the user that picks up the item. Moving down into the Action Manager table, we have various different columns, most of which contain data that will have been extracted from a document and sent in by the bot. Unique ID, in this case, would be a particular identifier for the item or document being automated. Secondary ID contains a further identifier, so that could be, in the case of invoice processing, a supplier. Custom ID is there as a backup identifier that can change. So if you want to identify something as X at the beginning of a process and Y at the end of a process, you can use the custom ID for this. Task type will be either business exception, approval, or extraction issue, depending on the reason that it's been sent into the platform. Task status will either be pending, opened, on hold, or complete, and the waited for column will present how long the item's been waiting. You can sort any of your actions on these columns, and you can also search for items in the search bar in the top right. This is the NexBot Studio. We have a particular phase here, which is a list of commands which have been arranged in a particular way, and when this runs, it will pick up a document from a folder. It will send it for OCR, getting the result back from the AI extraction, and it will then run some evaluation of the data, parse the response as needed, and then it's going to raise an issue in the platform so that then a human can intervene and tell the bot how to proceed with the business exception. I have an invoice in a hot folder that the bot's going to pick up from, so I'll just open this up so you can see. This is my invoice from the office supply company, and this invoice will be sent up to our cloud OCR that's AI assisted, and the key elements of this invoice will be extracted for the bot to use. You can see we have the invoice address, the invoice number, the date of the invoice, various line items and totals, all of which I would expect the AI to extract easily. Let's go ahead and start the bot and watch this document flow through. So the bot's starting. It's fetched the file from the folder, it's sent it for OCR, which is now being analysed, waiting for the response, which has just come back. It's being parsed. The process history in the platform has been updated with some logging, and the document has been raised in the platform. So if I refresh the Action Manager, we can now see that we have a business exception raised in the platform from the bot. Going back to the columns I talked about, we have the unique ID, for which the bot has used the extracted invoice number. We have the secondary ID, which the bot has added the extracted vendor name into. Don't have a custom ID for this use case. The task type is exception, and the task type is pending because we haven't yet done anything with the exception. So now that I've opened this exception, we can see more details. On the right hand side, we can see the original document that we processed, and perhaps most importantly at the beginning, we can see the reason the task was created. My advice to people using the platform is always to look at this message first, because this will tell you explicitly why the bot sent it in. And this is a message that's actually been sent in from the bot. So in this case, it's saying that a business rule was broken in the form of goods not being goods receipted. The bot will have done a check to say, are these goods that I've extracted from the document goods receipted for this purchase order in Sage? And they're not, therefore that's a breach of the business rules, and therefore I need to raise a business exception so that a human can deal with it. It's also offering a suggestion as to what to do next. So please request that goods are goods receipted and then return it to the required workflow. I'll go into more detail on that in a second. Before we do that, let's look at the rest of this document detail. So now we can see that the task status is opened. Because you've opened the document, it's now set to opened. You have various different actions that you can take on this document from the top. You can reject it, which means that the bot will not take any further action and this will disappear from your queue. We obviously don't want to do that for this. You can save any changes you've made to the document. So here, for example, on the left-hand side, we have all the extracted data that the OCR, with the assistance of the AI technology, was able to extract from the document. If this was raised as a business exception because a value was incorrect or didn't match something in another system, you could change a value in any of these text box fields and then click save, and that will amend the data for the document. If there are fields on here that have been extracted that you don't need, you can delete them by clicking the delete button next to the applicable field. We can also give the platform a list of fields that should be expected. So if they're missing, you can select them from this additional fields drop down, and this will add them to the fields below. Clicking the line items button will give you the specific line items from that invoice if you're using invoice processing, or it could be that you have table data that you're routing into these line items that you want to see on separate lines. Here you can see we have our first item, the box of rulers, and if we wanted to validate that amount for this line item, I can just toggle this notification button here to get rid of the message, and I can see that the line item total was indeed 30, which matches up with what was extracted. Clicking on the history tab will give you all the process log information for that document, so you'll be able to see what happened inside the bot and also in the platform for this particular item. You can also add comments, so if you click the comments button and then start typing inside this box, you can say, I'm going to check with logistics to see why this hasn't been GRN'd. Press enter and you've added a new comment. Your colleagues can see this comment for added context if you're planning to do something specific with the document. Clicking the put on hold button will change the status of the document to on hold. This means that you are telling the rest of your team that you've seen the document, you're pausing the execution for a while you take some further action, and then you'll take it off hold when you want to send it back to the bot. You can also choose to assign any item to another user. So you click the assign to another user button and you will have a list of users that are available to send items to. Let's assume then that you've taken all the action you need to take to handle this business exception. We want it to then go back to the bot on the applicable phase. Let's say, for example, the document has now been goods receipted and that this business rule would technically no longer be broken. Remember how I talked about every process has many phases? Well, any of the phases for this specific process will be available in this dropdown, and you can choose to send to those specific phases, or as the platform knows them, workflows. In this use case, we've got a dedicated phase for handling exceptions. So I'm going to choose exception handling as the workflow, click submit, and then the platform will ask me to confirm that I'm happy to send this back to the bot. I'll click confirm, and this will remove the item from my queue, having sent the item back to the bot. Now that was a business exception that we handled. For approvals, the process is pretty much the same. The only difference is that the task type will show approval, and there will be a button available called approve, which will allow the bot to send on the document to another phase. Now that we've looked at the Action Manager, let's take a look at another part of the Manage section within the platform. Let's take a look at the Activity Feed. The Activity Feed shows you any document or item that has been through the platform. We class these as jobs. When something enters the platform, it's queued as a job, and that job is tracked in the activity feed. That job has its own process history, which is a log of things that the bot did to it or things that have been done to it in the platform. And those jobs also have tasks. So whenever you have a task like a business exception or an approval, that task or action is linked to a job. So just like the action that we dealt with in the Action Manager example, there was a related job, which we can now see in the activity feed. This is similar to the Action Manager in that it shows various aspects of the extracted data for the document we processed. The status for this item is pending because we sent it back to the bot, and it means that it's waiting for the bot to pick it up and process it. Clicking View on a job will show us the history for that job, similar to the way we saw the history in the Action Manager. And clicking Tasks will show us any tasks which were raised for that job. Then you can click Open and it will reopen that task in a different tab, where you can also choose to reopen any specific platform tasks. Document fields will show the fields that were extracted without the ability to edit them. Same for line items. So this is an ideal place to come and track any document or item that's been through the bot, regardless of whether it was raised as a business exception or an approval. You can also export your activity to a spreadsheet with the Export button. Simply add the name of the report you want to create with a date range for the activities you want to capture, click Export, and then this will be available in the Downloads section. We've so far talked mostly about the human intervention that can be achieved in the platform, but we also need to talk about analytics. On the home page of the platform, you have your dashboard. This shows you key metrics and jumping off points for tasks that you may need to complete. It will show you your top 3 actions, which for our case, we don't have any actions because we've dealt with them all, but it would normally show you the top 3 actions ordered oldest first. So the items that have been waiting the longest for you to process will be there for you to see as an ideal jumping off point to get started with some human intervention. You'll also see some other analytics, including the last 7 days activity on the platform for actions that were altered by people in your team, and the last 7 days exceptions, so you can get a feel for how many exceptions were raised on a given day. You can also see a breakdown of the utilization between phases on a bot, where in this example we've got 60% of the bot's utilization running on a particular phase, in this case data analysis. Back within the Manage section, we also have the Process Hub Analytics. Process Hub Analytics are a more in-depth view of the state of any given process. Here you can see that this customer has 4 automations or 4 processes. For each of those processes, they can see specific data. Clicking the drop down here on Process Outcomes, for example, gives them a breakdown of the outcomes for each of their processes. We also give you a breakdown of the various exception reasons for any given document or item. This allows you to get some insight into your business processes and identify any patterns that may be happening during the automation. Here, for example, we can see that 81 of recent documents were raised as an exception because they were duplicate invoices. This may lead you to speak to your suppliers and say, we've noticed that we're getting a lot of duplicates, can you please take a look at this? There's also more in-depth information in the form of your average handling time reduction, which is a calculation of the average time the bot took to do something compared to your average manual handling time. Similarly, with the time saved, we'll also do a calculation of the bot's actual time to run against a manual estimation of your average handling time, which gives you the time saved in hours and minutes. You can see the total bot processing time in hours, your exception rate, so the percentage of items that ran through the bot that ended up with an exception, and your overall processing volume. A lot of this data allows you to glean some return on investment information to properly understand how your automation is faring and see if there's anything else you could do to save time and money. The platform's going through extensive development and is changing all the time. If you do spot bugs or you have feature requests, simply click the support button and this will open your default email client where you can send an email to customersupport@nexbotix.com. That will send us a ticket and we'll respond to you with feedback as soon as possible. I really hope this was useful and gave you some good background as to how we handle automations at NexBotix. Of course, if you have any questions, get in touch, and any suggestions are also welcome. Thanks for watching.